please irrelevant messages like hi, hello, or good morning, something like that. So please only stick to the questions relevant to the topic of this workshop. Okay, so with this, we start our first lecture. I invite Professor Kolvankar to start his lecture. He is from Junjunwala College in Ghatkopar, Mumbai, and he will take the subject of mathematical methods. Over to you, Kolvankar sir.
Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. So, I'm going to take mathematical methods part. I will start with very general comments. So, question is, what do we expect from this workshop? Yesterday, Dr. Parker has already mentioned that we don't, this workshop will not really prepare you completely for the entrance exams, but it will only give you some benchmark. In the sense, you can, from this workshop, you can gauge yourself and you come to know how much you should study. You please observe the speakers and how they argue. They give the arguments to come at the answer. You should be, you should study so much that finally you will be able to give such arguments. Of course, you will get some tips which will be useful, and they will be really important in saving time. But in 1 week workshop, the number of tips may not be so much. So idea is you yourself develop such tips, and for that you need a lot of hard work. Dr. Raut mentioned yesterday, the hard work is smart work is better than hard work. So here smart work means that you should study in right manner. You should not try to rote learn everything. You should not try to memorize everything, but practice and do a lot of practice, as practice makes man perfect. And after practice, you start seeing different methods. See, and then finally you have to choose the best method right there in the exam. So for that, you should already know 2-3 methods. Only then you can choose the best one. See, if you go to a new place, you start staying in a new place, you don't know anything about the place around, so you go to the station or shop by following a main road. But if you are curious, then you start finding about other roads. So as you stay there, then you know the area, and after that the whole perspective of that area is in your mind. Something like that should happen when you study. After practicing, there should be a perspective of the whole subject. Only then you can see different methods and try to choose the best one applicable for that problem. But this will happen if you are curious while studying. If you just study without thinking much, like people who are not curious, they don't find out different roads, they always take that main road. But while studying, you'll have to be really curious and find out different ways of doing things, and also you should go little deep in the subject. I will also advise you to choose proper books. The books which only solve examples are useful, but then there are books which have lots of concepts, lot of discussion. That is, those books are also important. Those books are written after a lot of thought. It is like when we read Gita again and again, we find out different meanings. Like this, there are lots of nice books, very written very carefully. You should refer to those books, right? So next general comment. Now I come to mathematics. All of we have heard this statement: mathematics is a language of physics or whole of science. So let's say, imagine that you go to a new place where you don't know language of that place. Then you get lost, you get confused. You don't know, you don't understand anything, right? That's what happened when you're not comfortable with mathematics and trying to do physics. So of course one can stay in that place, but then you have to struggle, right? So it is better to learn the language so that your life becomes easy, right? But in that new place, even if you know the alphabets of that language, you can understand something. You can make sense of the signboards there, and your life becomes little easy, right? So in that sense, I would say that functions, we can think of them as alphabets of language which is mathematics. One should be able to visualize functions. Don't take this statement very literally, but what I'm trying to say, if we write functions now again and again, but as soon as you write the function, if you can't visualize that function in your mind, then things become difficult. As soon as you write the function, that graph of that function should immediately come to your mind, and whenever possible, it may not be always possible, but whether it is symmetric, odd, even, similar, all these things should immediately strike. Only then you can use properties and try to simplify the problem, right? So since visualizing function is an important aspect, I will spend some time on that. So let's try to take a simple example. We'll try to, just to illustrate the point, we have to imagine this function without actually evaluating at too many points. So a simple function x square minus 5x plus 6. So first thing is, we should try to evaluate the function at some simple points. So let's see. So we can try to evaluate the function at 0. Then we know the value is 6. So the function will pass through some point here, say. Then at plus infinity and minus infinity, we know that this function increases at plus infinity and minus infinity. So function will increase here, something like this, and increase here. Now question is, what happens? It will pass through 6, but whether, and we know that for this function will have one minimum, but that minimum will be on the left or right. So this particular function is a simple function, so we can find roots and see where it will cross x-axis or y-axis. But let's say it's a different function, complicated function, or even cubic polynomial, then we cannot find roots. So we have to have a different way of sketching this function, right? So we can then find its derivative, which is 2x minus 5, right? So we see that derivative is, there is a minimum at x equal to 5 by 2. So 5 by 2 is somewhere here, let's say. Still there are two possibilities. Function can come like this and go like this, or it can come like this, and so don't mind the drawing, but take the idea. So or it can cross x-axis. Since we don't know the roots, then we can evaluate this function at x equal to 5 by 2, and it turns out to be a negative number, minus 1 by 4. That means this is the correct option and this is a wrong option. Now, this is just a simple example. Just by simple evaluation, we can visualize how the function looks like. You should be able to draw all standard functions immediately: sine, exponential, Gaussian, trigonometric, all trigonometric functions, logarithmic functions. You should be able to draw them immediately, right? Now, with these functions, there are lots of simple properties. If there is a fx, there is a function, if you multiply by minus, then it is a reflection in the x-axis. So let's say this is a function. If I multiply by minus x, then I get this function. Or if I multiply minus inside the argument, then I get a reflection in y-axis, something like this. All these things you should be really very conversant with. If you add a positive constant to a function, we shift the function up. But if you add a positive quantum constant to the argument, then we shift the function to the left. So even functions look the same when we reflect them in the y-axis, and odd functions will look different. So even function will look something like this, and odd function will look something like this. Right? All these things you should be really conversant with. As soon as you see a graph, you should immediately note all these properties. Right? Then if you know fx and there are two functions fx and gx, and we know both of them how to draw, then we can try to guess product also. And here zeros of those fx and gx become handy. If one function is not infinity and other is 0, then product will also be 0 there, right? So let's take one example and we'll go ahead. So we know how exponential function looks like. So this is an exponential function. So if I multiply it by minus sign, then I get this function. If I add 1, then I get this function. And this is the function we encounter in charging discharging. It should pass through 0. Right? This is 1 minus e to the power minus x. Right? So one can, from known function, one can immediately generate all the functions. I won't need this drawing after this. Okay, so now I will write one question and then we'll discuss the solution. On the left hand side, I will have a question, and on the right hand side, step by step, we'll discuss the solution. I have selected some questions from different topics. So before I go to that topic, I will tell you something about what is important, what you should study in that topic. So since I have talked about visualization of functions, we come to this question. So visualization of functions is very important also because it can help you to save time. So, and saving time in an entrance exam is very important. It not only, see, there are some questions which are direct, which needs function plotting, but there are other questions where this information or this ease of visualizing function will come very handy and it will save time. Not only in mathematical problems, but all problems of all areas in physics. If you can immediately visualize the function, things will become easy and you will arrive at the answer faster. For example, we know that function is expected to have some minimum somewhere, right? So then you don't have to evaluate the second derivative and check whether it is minimum or maximum. Just first derivative gives you the critical point, and you expect you can argue that there is a minimum, so you don't have to find out the second derivative and verify, right? So it saves a lot of time if you have all these ideas clear in your mind and you are very fast with it, right? So now in the question we have there's a graph given and you are expected to guess what is the functional form of this graph, right? So we'll go one by one. So we can immediately rule out options B and D. Option B is cos function, which you all know is a sinusoidal function with constant amplitude, and in this graph we see amplitude is decreasing. Option D, we can see that here amplitude is decreasing, but it goes to infinity at x equal to 0, and our function it approaches 1 at x equal to 0. So D option is also not correct. But A and C are quite similar. Bessel function does look like this, and if you multiply cos x with e raised to minus x, it will also look like this. So we have to look carefully. Since cos x function has zeros at pi by 2, 3 pi by 2, etc. So we check whether does it cross. So this is my x-axis here, and it crosses the x-axis after 2. So it does not become 0 at pi by 2 as expected. So So we can rule out option C also. Right. Another point, one can note that distance between zeros is not constant here. For option C, you would expect that distance between zeros would be constant. Right. So therefore, we can immediately say that even if we don't know how Bessel function looks like, we can eliminate all other three options and we can take the correct answer as A. Right. So I took some time to explain, but when you are solving, this happens in few seconds. Tuck, tuck, tuck. That way it should happen, and you should master the subject in such a manner that you can do these things very quickly. Now we come to the next question again, which uses some visualization of function. So there are polynomials p and x are given, and what is given, the integral of pn into pm from 2 to 4 is a delta function, Kronecker delta. So that means when n and m is equal to 1, this is 1, and when n is not equal to m, this is 0. And then there are 4 options given. So immediately we can notice that P0, in the options, there are only P0 and P1. And P0 is a constant, right? So though it's a product of two functions, it is a simpler product, but basically it is only this function. Right? So now area under the curve, when integral is, first let's take n not equal to m. Right? So n is 0 and m is 1, let's say. Right? So it says that area under the curve is 0. So if area under the curve is 0, that means some part of the function has to be below the x-axis and some part has to be above the x-axis. That means our function should cross x-axis in the interval of integration. If you realize this, then we can immediately rule out options A and B. Because this becomes 0 at -3, this also becomes 0 at -3. And since it's a linear function, it cannot become 0 at any other point. So only option C and D, they become 0 at x equal to 3. So, but still now there are two options remaining. Now for that, we take n equal to m equal to 0. So it is just either half square integral or 1 upon root 2 square integral, and that we can immediately see that this integral will be 1, p0 square 1, right? So option D is the correct answer. Again, I took some time to explain, but this should not take less than half a minute. See what happens, whatever time you save in some questions, you can use in some other questions which are more time consuming. See, there are different kinds of questions. Some questions will allow you to save time by some tricks or shorter methods, but some questions you'll have to work out. There is no option, and you might take little more time. So if you save some time somewhere, it is very useful in other problems. Right. So now we come to Fourier series, Fourier transforms, and so on and so forth. I'll just quickly graphically explain what Fourier series is. Right. So here we are trying to plot this function summation 2i plus 1x by 2i plus 1. First, this is just I equal to 0. It is just a sine function. Then it is, so n equal to 1. So it is sum of 2 sine x and sine 3x by 3. You see there are some distortions. If you add one more sine x, sine 3x by 3 and sine 5x by 5, then you see it is taking some shape. Now we can guess it is coming to square wave. So if add 10 such terms, then we see the square wave. And if you add 100 terms, it is a perfect square wave. So what we are saying is we have generated square wave by adding sines and their amplitude is decreasing. So adding some sines with decreasing amplitude in very peculiar way, we can generate square wave from adding sine waves. So any periodic function we can generate like this. So Fourier series, So here somebody has given this how this coefficient should decrease, but Fourier series asks this question: given any periodic function, how to determine this amplitude? And I'm sure all of you have studied this Fourier series. You have derived formula an and bn. An is coefficient of cos functions and bn is coefficient of sines, right? So any periodic function we can find in bn, but then question is, if my function is not periodic, so in this summation we see that frequencies are very peculiar: omega, 2 omega, 3 omega, like this. There are no frequencies in between. But if the function is not periodic, then you have to take frequencies in between, and then you have to take all frequencies. So instead of an bn, it becomes ak bk, and that is our Fourier transform, right? So they are nothing but, Fourier transform is nothing but amplitudes of, if you try to expand the function in terms of sines and cosines, then how amplitude will change with the frequency. This is a Fourier transform. So you should practice Fourier series a lot, Fourier transforms, then again related Laplace transforms. You should know their properties, convolution theorem, Fourier transform of derivative of function, Laplace transform of derivative of function, shifting formula, and you'll have to remember all the inverse Laplace transform formulae, because they will come very handy, right? So with this we will do one example of Fourier transform. So before going to this example, if you have a periodic function and if you take a Fourier transform, then we know in a periodic function there are only discrete frequencies. So for a periodic function, if you take Fourier transforms, there will be only peaks, delta functions at those frequencies, and everywhere it will be 0. So this is immediately, if it's a periodic function, then Fourier transform we can immediately try to guess. I said this because in the assignment this information can be useful. So now we'll try to solve this Fourier transform. So you immediately, if you look at this function, as soon as you read that function, you should visualize how it looks. It's an exponential falling on both sides. Therefore, it is an even function, right? So there's a property of Fourier transform of even function. It becomes two times the Fourier of cosine transform, right? So here, this Fourier transform of this function, this is equal to 2 times Fourier transform of cosine Fourier transform of this function, right? All these things should immediately strike you, right? And then once you get this, then you should be able to write the answer directly, because you should have remembered Laplace transform, and this is a Laplace transform of cos kx, which then you put s equal to 1, right? So this integral we can solve this by integration by parts, but if you try to solve it, you'll waste time. You should have remembered this, because it is nothing but Laplace transform of cos kx, right? So all this, so we'll be telling you all these tips which will be useful, but finally you have to practice and develop this ability to find out tricks. This will happen only when you solve examples with curiosity. We're looking around, looking some pattern in the examples, then going little deeper, and so on and so forth. So correct answer is C. Now we come to differential equations. So differential equation is another topic where there are lots of questions. See, I have selected only few topics where there are more questions come in the exam. So differential equation is one such topic. So there are first order lots of questions of first order differential equations. So you should know separable, homogeneous, exact differential equations, and then you should be able to solve them very quickly. Then second order differential equation with constant coefficients, homogeneous, non-homogeneous, you should know very well. Then even in second order differential equation with non-constant coefficient, one can do power series method or special functions and so on and so forth. But see, till second order differential equation constant coefficient, we have a method to solve the equation. But as soon as you go to non-constant coefficient, there may not be, I mean, a straightforward method, and that's why I've taken an example of such an equation. So whenever we have such an equation where we are asked to guess the solution, of course, one can try to substitute all the and check, but then that is very time consuming. You should avoid that. But whenever such a question, differential equation is there, that means there is some simple substitution which will work. This you should keep in mind instead of getting frightened. There is always, and that's in such entrance exam, there may not be any complicated substitution. It will be a simple substitution. And this particular example, you notice there is x square and second derivative. There is x and first derivative. So here x to the power 0 and 0 is the derivative. So power of the coefficient and order of the derivative, they go hand in hand. So they decrease in the same manner, right? So whenever such a thing is there, we can immediately guess a function of the type x to the power n will be a solution. That is because when you take derivative of x to the power n, second derivative power decreases by 2, and that decrease is compensated by this x square. When you take first derivative, power decreases by 1, and that decrease is compensated by this x. So finally, you have same power of x in all the terms, and that goes away then, because right hand side is 0, and you are left with some equation which we can solve. So if you substitute x to the power n in this equation, then we get this equation. There is n into n minus 1 coming from here, then there is n coming from this derivative, and 3x to the power n, and then x to the power n goes away, and finally we are left with this equation which we can solve at n equal to minus 1 or minus 3. So therefore we see, so we get two linearly independent solution, 1 upon x and 1 upon x cube, and their linear combination will be a general solution, and hence D is the answer. So don't get frightened if you see some equation which we don't know. There will most likely there will be some simple substitution which will work. Now we come to complex analysis. This is another topic. There are lots of questions, so you should practice examples from this also. So complex analysis. So one can start with complex functions, then analytic function, CR, Cauchy-Riemann condition to check analyticity, then contour integrals, so contour integrals has Cauchy theorem, and then there is a residue theorem. So you can find out integral by finding out residues. So so these problems are usually very difficult, but if you practice, you should not have any problem, right? And then using residue like problems, one can evaluate definite integrals, indefinite integrals, and so on and so forth. So I have taken one problem which will illustrate this Cauchy theorem. So one longer way is to solve this problem is we know functional form of this curve. We substitute that in the integrand, and then you have function only of x. Only there is a real part and imaginary part. We can evaluate them separately, but this will take longer time, right? See, our curve C is only this part, so we can convert this to a closed curve by adding this interval. So we form a closed loop by addition of interval -1 to 1. and the function e to the power z is, we know it's analytic. Therefore, its integral over closed curve should be 0. Right? So we have integral over c union minus 1 to 1. This should be 0. And this integral can be split into two terms, integral over c plus the integral over this interval, and that should be 0. And this integral one can evaluate immediately because this only involves simple function and real variables, and therefore we get this as an, so this integral can be evaluated, this, and it is e minus e to the power minus 1, and that is equal to 2 sine h1. Notice there is a trap here. So if you come to this step, for example, e minus e to the power minus 1, you will start seeing that there is some e and e minus 1, and you might see that, oh, there is only one option with e and e minus 1. You might tick this quickly, but if you really solve it carefully, there is a minus sign, and which becomes 2 sine hyperbolic 1, and that option is there. So option B is the correct answer. So one should be, one has to, of course, hurry up and save time, but one should not commit mistakes because of that. Right? Then another topic is linear algebra, matrices, determinants, and so on and so forth. There are lots of questions on this, lots of different types of questions. So I selected two here. Right. So in this topic, one should again study rank, determinant, trace, how to find eigenvectors, eigenvalues, their relation between trace and eigenvalues, relation between determinant and eigenvalues. All that helps in quickly solving the problem. Right. So I have taken problems which will slightly illustrate these methods, not with relation between trace and determinants. There are lots of examples like that. You can.
Shankar sir, just
Yes.
sorry to disturb. Can you keep your mic a little bit closer to your mouth? It is slightly, voice is a little less.
Okay. Maybe I will try to increase the volume of my mic. Oh, is this better? This is better?
Yes, yes, it is better.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. I lost. There is some problem.
We can see your slides.
You can see my slides, but I cannot see my Zoom window. I cannot see my slides. Maybe I will stop share and share again. Okay. Maybe I will try to increase the volume of my.
Or just speak a little louder.
Okay, fine. Is this better?
Yes, it is better.
Okay. You want still better?
No, this is fine, I guess.
This is fine. Okay. It's better.
Yes.
It's fine. Sir.
Yes, it is better.
Okay. So we will solve this. So we are given a column vector A, B, A, and we are given two matrices, and we have to find out for which values of A, B, this will be common simultaneous eigenvector of both these matrices, right? Of course, one can check individually, but then again that is time consuming. See, and sometimes you are given a correct answer and shown why it is correct answer by substituting, but in the exam you have to decide. So you have to arrive at the answer, right? So how to systematically arrive at the answer, that I will demonstrate. So if you operate A on that vector, we get the same vector. So our vector is already an eigenvector of A, so we don't have to worry about that. We operate B on that vector, we get a different vector. So our vector is not an eigenvector of B, but if you want it to be eigenvector, we want that it should be equal to some alpha times A, B, A, right? That means we have two equations. One is alpha times A. Alpha times A should be equal to A plus B, and alpha times B should be equal to 2A, right? And we don't know alpha, we don't want to know alpha, so we'll eliminate alpha by dividing these two equations and then cross multiplying. So when you divide, we get A by B on the left hand side and A plus B by 2A on the right hand side, and cross multiply, and then you get this equation, B square plus AB minus 2A square equal to 0. Now this is a quadratic equation and we can find the roots. So we get B is equal to, using usual formula, it's either A or minus 2A, and we see that there is option B here, which gives the answer. So we can systematically arrive at the answer. Another question we consider in matrices is, we are given a matrix, simple looking matrix, all ones, and we have to find out the eigenvalues, right? So of course one can use usual method, 1 minus lambda, and so and find out, but that is time consuming. It's actually a waste of time also. Here we really don't need to do that. I will give you two more methods. One method I won't explain much, I will just state. If you notice that this matrix is something called positive semi-definite, I won't tell you what it is. It is your exercise to go and find out what it means. And then also notice that there is only one independent vector, 1, 1, 1 getting repeated. So in that case, we have rank 1 and 2 eigenvalues should be 0. So one can immediately, one can verify immediately that it is positive semi-definite, then we can say that B should be the answer. I will explain another method because I would like to explain the way of finding eigenvectors also at the same time, because it might happen that in some other exam you are asked to find the eigenvectors, right? So let's operate M on some general vector x, y, z, and you get x plus y plus z, all some components are same. So clearly, if you take x equal to y equal to z, that is an eigenvector. So you have one eigenvector, say 1, 1, 1, and its eigenvalue is 1. But since all the vectors are mapped to vector with the same component, you can't have any other combination which will give you, which will satisfy this, which will satisfy property of eigenvector, unless these are zeros. So we have x plus y plus z equal to 0, and so that means other eigenvalues are 0, and there are two such eigenvectors because this is the equation of a plane, and so there are two vectors spanning this space, right? So there is one eigenvalue 3 and other two eigenvalues are 0, and we can immediately construct the eigenvectors also, right? So this, though I am taking time to explain this, both these methods will be much faster than actually evaluating, substituting 1 minus lambda in the diagonal and evaluating the determinant and coming at the answer. For this, but you need a lot of practice, right? So now we come to probability. So probability is a probability is a actually topic which is ignored a lot. But there are lots of questions. Probability is where the questions are simple. So if you know little bit, you can solve them. So most of the problems on probability are actually very simple. But then students are usually afraid because there is one problem they face. They think of something and answer turns out to be very different. They think of some logic, and when they see the solution, it turns out that the solution has used different logic, and that is then they realize that is correct. So why that happens is usually people forget the basics in probability. So the basic definition in probability, the favorable events divided by samples, size of the sample, that should always be remembered, and one should practice using that always. If there is a confusion, one should always go back to that definition and check with that definition what is the answer, right? And most of, see, it is like, see, this is an example of cricket. So I will give you example of cricket. If in cricket, let's say you learn all the techniques, but on the ground, you go on the ground and move your bat randomly, it doesn't work. You have to remember those techniques and apply there. Similarly, in probability, you practice, and then problems are really simple. So this, in fact, this is a problem from one of the exam. So there is a series, and so coin is tossed in the beginning of a test series, and there's a captain who says heads all the time, right? So the question is, what is the probability that he will win 3 times and lose 2 times? So it's a very specific number. So he will win 3 times and lose 2 times. It could be anything: first, third, fifth win, or 3 wins consecutively and then 2 losses. It could be anything. One can use binomial formula for this, but then again, that is little that is really not necessary. This is a simple problem, and one can solve it by using simple definition. I've chosen this problem just because I want to illustrate that simple method how we should use, right? So the quickest way to do this problem, to use basic definition of probability. What is that? So coin is tossed 5 times. So sample space has size 2 to the power 5, which is equal to 32. And then out of these 5 times, we want wins 3 times. So we have to ask questions in how many different ways. So you have to revise here your permutation combination. So when you study probability, you have to study basic definition, then concept of independent events, then permutation combination. You should revise. You should understand exactly when you should use permutation and when you should use combination. Then there are concept of random variables. Then there are continuous distribution, Gaussian, Lorentz distribution, binomial distribution. If you know all this, then problems are usually straightforward. So here we have to find out in how many ways we can pick up 3 from 5 tosses. So it turns out it is 5C3, which is equal to 10, and therefore probability is 10 by 32, which is 5 by 16. Okay, so this is one example. Let's consider another example. So 2 dice are thrown, and there are numbers written on those dice, 1 to 6. Now question is, what is the probability that sum of the numbers on the dice is divisible by 5? Right. So again, we have to construct a sample space and find out what are favorable events. Right. So there are total 36 possibilities, 6 for the first dice, 6 for the second dice, so total 36. In this diagram, we see all the possibilities. So first dice 1, second dice 1, first dice 1, second 2, and so on and so forth. We can immediately find the sum also. Here sum is 2. In this line sum is 3. In this line sum is 4. In this line sum is 5, and so on and so forth. And we want that sum is divisible by 5. So that means when sum is 5 or sum is 10, these are our favorable events. So there are total 7 favorable events. Right? So 7 by 36 is the answer. But notice, from such a diagram we can conclude so many things. You could be asked, what is the probability that sum is greater than something or sum is less than something? So let's say if sum is greater than 8, then all these elements in these triangles will form probable event greater than or equal to 8, and then we can count this number. That divided by 36 will give us the probability. Right. So this is right. So there are 7 so drawing such diagram and going back to the basics of finding the sample space and favorable events always is very convenient, and then there is no confusion and you won't arrive at the incorrect answer. Right. I think that is all. So we can take some questions. Thank you all, and all the best for your examinations. And I have given my email address, so you can write to me if you have any query.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We'll take the questions now.
Shall I stop share?
Yes. Okay. Siddharth sir, you can moderate the question part.
Yes, sir. Mishra ma'am will be moderating the question part, sir. Mishra ma'am, you are on mute, ma'am. I think there is a brief delay between YouTube and Zoom, so I think that's what is taking the time. I check up. Yeah.
Okay.
I can say that there is a request to explain third method of eigenvector.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Kiran,
Yes.
sir, for a very nice session. Many of the students are asking to repeat the polynomial problem. So can you just explain that one more time?
Yes. The second problem. Yes. Maybe I went little fast, and that's why it got over also little. This one, okay.
It's taking the time. I check.
Okay. So let's. So there is a. We are given this. This question actually looks complicated, but it is not that complicated. So
I can
it
say
says
that there
we
is
have
a request
polynomial
to explain
Pn.
third method of eigenvector. Okay.
Yeah. That one, but people want this method also. I will explain this and then we'll come to the third third method.
Kiran sir, that was a repeat from YouTube.
Yes.
So sorry for that.
So
Yeah. Please go ahead.
yeah.
Please go ahead, sir.
I'm back. I had lost the connection. Okay, so there it says Pn are polynomials, but actually with polynomial degree n, but it is only using in the answers you see it is only using 0 and 1. So if you read the problem, then you feel that, oh, this is some complicated problem, there are lots of polynomials, but that is not the case. If you look at the answers, then it is just P0, P1. There is nothing, right? So that is another trick. Don't get frightened by reading the question. Usually question may not mean much. So it is just P0 and P1. And again, if you note that P0s are just constants, then things again are simple. It is just P1 is just a linear function and multiplied by constant. So finally, this product in this integral is nothing but a linear function. There is nothing more to it. And what it says, P0 integral should be equal to 1, and P0 into P1 integral should be equal to 0. So let's first take the second case, n not equal to m, so P0 P1, right? And then integral, see, arguing integral is 0 is very easy. So there should be positive part, negative part, then only integral is nothing but area under the curve. So if area under the curve has to be 0, then function has to be in the upper part and has to be in the lower part. That means it should cross the x-axis inside the interval of integration, right? If you notice this, then you can immediately rule out a and b, because -3 minus x will not cross, it will cross x-axis at x equal to -3. -3 is not there in the interval of the integration. This will also cross x-axis at x equal to -3. So this will also not cross the x-axis in the interval of integration. And fortunately, these are just linear functions, so they cannot cross anywhere else on the x-axis. So only choices are remaining are C and D. For that, we use P0 and P1. Sorry, P0 and P0. So it is P0 square, and that integral should be equal to 1. So half square is 1/4, and this integral is 2. Interval size is 2. So in this case, when P0 is half, the integral will be half, which we don't want. But if we take P0 equal to square root of 2, then square is half, and this integral is 2, and 2 will cancel, and you will get integral equal to 1. So only option D will satisfy P0, the case when n is 0 and m is 0. Right? So we finally get the answer. Right? So this is for this question. Then we'll go to the matrix problem. Right? So there's a matrix 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1, and we have to find the eigenvalues. If you start solving it the usual way, it will take long time. So I will explain the third method again. So we take a general vector x, y, z and operate m on this general vector. And we see that we get x plus y plus z, x plus y plus z, x plus y plus z. So it is the, so this is a constant vector. I can write x plus y plus z as some number, then this is a constant vector. Right? So if my vector x, y, z to begin with is same, all x equal to y equal to z, then I'll just get 3x. Say if I write x, 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 then I get here 3x, 3x, 3x. So 3 will come out, and we see that x, x, x is an eigenvector with eigenvalue 3. So we have found out one eigenvalue. So option is either B or D. But now we have to find another eigenvector and corresponding eigenvalue. But you see that for any general x, y, z, this gets mapped to same number repeated thrice. So any vector goes to a vector 1 1 1 times something. Right? In such a situation, you cannot. So finally, if this has to be an eigenvector, then this should be equal to some constant times x, y, z. Right? So that means x plus y plus z should be some alpha times x plus y plus z should be equal to alpha times y, and x plus y plus z should be equal to alpha times z. And these three equations will be satisfied only if x plus y plus z is 0. Right? So what we say is another eigenvalue has to be 0. Right? So here we get another eigenvalue which is 0. We don't get the eigenvector. To find out the eigenvector, we have to find two vectors in this plane. Then we get two eigenvectors. Right? I will repeat. If this has to be an eigenvector, then we should write this as equal to alpha times x, y, z. Then we get three equations which will have solution only when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0. Sorry, x plus y plus z is equal to 0. So right hand side is 0. Right? So that means other two eigenvalues are only 0. So second is the option. But using this equation x plus y plus z, one can find eigenvectors. You take any two vectors which satisfy, two independent vectors which satisfy this equation, and you will have eigenvectors with eigenvalue 0 also. Is that fine? Are there any other questions?
Sir, students have requested for the reference books which they could refer for this subject.
Okay. The book I always recommend to BSc students, or little, those who are not comfortable with mathematics, I recommend Mary L. Bowe's book. That is very nicely explained and not very. I mean, it avoids difficult concept, but still covers a lot. And then, of course, RFkin is there at a little advanced level. Those who are comfortable, they should solve that. And there is Rayleigh Hobson. That book is there, which I have not used personally myself. I will recommend Mariel-Bose at little lower level and Arfkin at higher level. And of course, there are Shom series books to solve, have practice of solving. So Shom series will not discuss the concepts in detail, but if you want to just practice, you can use them. Any question?
Kiran sir, students are asking if you can tell some reference book.
Yeah, he has done that. He has done that.
And I think on YouTube it will go now.
Yeah, it's delayed.
Right.
There is one more point that since this visualization problem, the first problem which you did, sometimes special functions are there which are very, very similar. So is there some kind of trick to it, how to identify the right answer? Or could you elaborate on that? That's a question.
Special functions which are similar, then you really need to know where they cross. There are some if you know properties of zero crossings, then yes. But at I think at our MSc level, that is not really expected. I mean, at MSc, this level, perhaps studying special functions in so detail is not expected. But from zero crossings, one can try to guess.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that is all the questions which we got from students. Parker, sir, over to you.